decision precedes knowledge. They're the three words that I want to really burn into your head throughout this particular video, because it goes completely against the common modern understanding of how to act. So the modern approach is going to be that knowledge comes first. We figure it all out, we come up with a plan, and then we head out and we put that plan into action once we've figured it all out beforehand. So then we know all the different steps, and then we just enact the plan, and that's as simple as that. Whereas what I'm going to challenge you with is the exact reverse of that, of instead of gaining the knowledge first, make the decision first. And then the knowledge that is relevant will be made relevant on the journey towards that process, as you're making that decision, as you're experiencing the world. So this is a confusing point at first to understand, up until it becomes clear from an existential point of view, from a meaning point of view, that we need to make a decisive stand towards existence. We need to make sure that we're saying, yes, I might be feeling anxiety, but there's no point in me learning all about anxiety and only that. I need to also learn to know what it feels like to act with anxiety and to not let that stop me in the world. So there is room for the psychoanalytic approach of learning about anxiety and symptoms and the management and where it comes from. That's great, that's definitely useful. But we also need to make sure that we're not reducing our experience of anxiety all the way down to just that level, and that's all. We need to also try to think about it as being anxious is a way of being, it's a way of experiencing the world, and we need to make sure that we are still experiencing the world despite that as well. So this is what I mean when I say we have to have this stand towards existence. So as we're trying to understand all of this, what we need to do first of all is to figure out our values, and then to make sure that we are acting in line with those values and making decisions in line with those values. And then from there, the goals will start to emerge. From there, the relevant knowledge will start to emerge. When I started this big library building project, it started out as just me needing to do inner work on myself. I didn't know where it was going. I just knew that things needed to be sorted out in my head and in my body and in my life in general. And I wasn't quite sure where that path was going to go. And one book led to another, to another, to another. And all of a sudden, roughly 100 books later, I'm now being pulled towards this future, which is in line with my values. It's in line with who I want to be and what I'm trying to become. I would have never predicted that trauma healing and shadow work and self-actualization and existentialism would have been a key part of that journey if I'd have just tried to set it all out from book one, throughout every single page of every single book up to book 100. I could have never figured that out otherwise. But the books have become relevant to me on that journey as I've been able to act meaningfully. So when we say that decision precedes knowledge, what we mean is if I start to act, all of a sudden the world makes it relevant what it needs to present to me for me to be able to commit fully to that action. Whereas if I'm just trying to gain knowledge, I could gain knowledge about everything. I could gain knowledge about exactly what shade of green this bush is. I could look at the height of it. I could count up how many there are. I could look at the trees. I could learn to classify everything. I could learn to explain everything perfectly, but it still doesn't tell me how to act. It still doesn't tell me how to be in the world. It doesn't tell me anything about the relationships that I should and shouldn't be forming with other people and within myself. What I'm much more interested in is this idea that I came out here to record a video, and then all of a sudden, as I was walking through this park, different places became known to me as I was walking through as, oh, we could be recording there, we could be recording over there. My head was going in one direction, we could talk about this, we could talk about that. So all of a sudden, because I made the decision of leaving the house to come to this park to talk to the camera, on that journey, the relevant knowledge became clear to me as, this is what we're going to talk about, and it might not be perfect, and that's okay. We're going to try to find an environment to be able to record it in, which is generally quite aesthetic. It might not be perfect, but that's okay. And as a result, I just need to get out of the house and make that experience known. And this is going to be relevant across all the goals that I'm going to set across my life. It's just trying to make sure that instead of aiming for perfectionism all the time and looking at this absolutely perfect knowledge at the outlay, instead I'm going to make some really basic decisions, some really basic commitments to myself, and figure it out on the way. I'm going to have trust that I am more than I think I am. And there's a lot of qualities that I rely on in my personality, which have got me so far, But if I'm going to make another step forward in the future, I'm going to have to rely on parts of my personality that maybe I've not used all that much at this point in time. And maybe there's parts of me that I don't really associate as being me, but actually by incorporating and integrating those parts of my personality into my conscious personality, suddenly the world starts to open up a little bit more. I'm not just this very, very narrow slice of who I thought I was. Actually, the wedge is much bigger. And that can only come about through shadow work, which is something I hadn't or couldn't have realised if I'd have started just at book one, figuring out every one of the next 100 books I was going to read. That only became obvious as it was picking up pace and as I could feel it in my body as well. There seems to be something here, something energetic is pulling me towards this compared to other areas. And that's because I made the decision to do the inner work. So if there's any message I can get across to you all, it's exactly what I'm saying to all of this. It's that decision precedes knowledge. Make the decision first and the relevant knowledge will be made clear to you. Have faith and have trust in the process, and have faith in yourself that you are more than you currently think you are, and also that you are more than you think you could even become at this point in time. This is a complete crossing of a horizon that we can't even see at this particular point. So if we make the decision first, if we make that commitment towards ourselves, towards existence, towards being, then the relevant knowledge comes. But it can't happen the other way around, because it's not expansive enough. And that's exactly how I've ended up behind a random building in the middle of the woods, squatting down, talking to you now, knowing that half an hour ago I didn't know where this video was going to take place, I didn't know what I was going to talk about, and everything falls in line when you make that decision, even if it isn't perfect. Decision precedes knowledge.